All right. Well, I'm back. So I'm just going to recap what I was talking about. So with school, yeah, I didn't have anybody at home that listened to me. I had all of them, all of my family members who were supposed to protect me. They weren't protecting me. But I did have my grandmother. Now, because I lived pretty close to the school, I was a very independent kid. I didn't want to be at home. I didn't want to keep dealing with a lot of things. So when I was, between 3 and 8 years old, I would go outside barefoot, and barely wearing clothes. One time I went walking around in the rain by myself, just a little kid walking out in the neighborhood in the rain, and neighbors would stop and they'd wonder what's going on. And as I got older, situations that I would tell people that are real, they wouldn't believe. And then at a certain point, I really was trying to get people's attention because there was a lot of things that were going on that nobody was listening to me, and I started getting very upset and angry, especially at the people around me. You know, I would I would send when I was getting bullied at school by students who I grew up with since kindergarten. I started retaliating. I started acting out. I had bad behaviors. I'd fight people. I'd be yell and I'd be destructive. I watched my father, physically abuse my mother before when I was a little kid. And when I was also little, I would get into everything. I would dig into everything. And one of my earliest memories was coming across pornographic content. Like I said, we had the black boxes in the 90s, um, scramble porn, all types of stuff. MTV was the thing, 80s, 90s. So I'd watch all the music videos. I'd want to dream to be just like them, be a movie star, be someone who has admiration or people to kind of look up to in a way. And I just thought it was so cool, whether you're a musician or in the movies. I mean, just the entertainment itself was cool. But at an early age, I was indoctrinated. I like Disney, but I also, as I got older, I realized the things that I was surrounded around were basically the indoctrination of sex trafficking and pedophilia and mind control and all types of bad things. Now, I couldn't tell people as a kid a lot of those things because they didn't believe me. And I couldn't even confirm most of the time if it was, in fact, accurate because I was such a small age. You know, my family would even let my abusers come and hang out. They didn't take it serious. In fact, I could remember even 3 years ago telling my mother, I'm in my 30s, telling my mother that, when I was a little kid, I was sexually assaulted and exposed to and things like that. And now knowing more than what I did then, my mother's reaction was, "Oh, sorry to hear that." Which now that now that I know more than what I know now because of things I had been able to become more mindful of in recognizing situations and how they were treating scenarios and what they would say, everything started to come together. I wanted to have a family that loved me, and I wanted to see the best in my family members because that's all I had. But sometimes the things that we want the most are more harmful to ourselves because they enable others. And if you are a good-hearted person, you can easily be taken advantage of. But even when I was dealing with all of these things growing up, I told myself that, I don't want to be like my family. I don't want to live in poverty. I don't want to beat women. I don't want to do anything with kids. I wanted to have children. I wanted to be a good father, a role model. And, and then I found out when I was older, I had a girlfriend. My sister had a friend, and I ended up being with her friend in my 20s. And she said that she got pregnant, and I told her I wanted to talk to her because if it's my child, I'm not the type of person that's gonna walk away or be scared. In fact, I was actually looking forward to something better than what I had. And that person went and got an abortion before I knew it. It's out of my control. That person made the decision that they wanted to. But what was more ironic of that situation happening was the fact that even my sister, my older sister, she went out of her way to name her child with the same, so that way, in case I never had children, that they would be able to benefit off of the family name. Now, supposedly, I had an inheritance. I didn't even know about it. Didn't even matter. Because I was more focused on trying to improve my family's lives. There's no money out there in the world that can cover the lack of love, unconditional, feelings, and true authenticity. And when I found out that that's not even my real family, it was like something that I already knew, but I couldn't confirm. So supposedly, I was never supposed to be with them. And supposedly, I want to say, and it'll all come out, but they basically took me and kept me. So the problem with the person who did abort my child was disappointing, but my family themselves, since my existence, were counting on me never having children, which is why my sister, the reason why I know all these things is because they would make smart comments to me. My sister would always say, oh, you're not going to be successful, or even my family, you're not going to be successful, you're not going to do this, you're not going to do that, you're crazy, why are you thinking like this? Anything that they could do. And they didn't want me to have children because, like I said, I was supposed to be their sacrifice to Satan. And it's true. It'll come out. It'll all come out. But I had different plans. My plans didn't align with what they thought my destiny was going to be. And even though I was a bad child, you know, fighting with kids, you know, being ignored, never having a voice, you know, my voice was completely taken. I could barely speak. I was very shy. I was put in the back in the class, you know. But I was always interested in subject matter, history, sports, being active. I mean, so many different things. And everybody just didn't believe in me. They didn't think that I had the motivation or that I could change. In fact, I didn't even really know that I could. But after so much pain from my family, from the people closest around me, from even the kids in the neighborhood who would constantly pick on me, they'd beat me up. In fact, one time, you know, they basically tripped me and I got the wind knocked out of me, and I thought I was gonna die. I don't know if anybody's ever had the wind knocked out of you, but it is not fun at all. And that happened for years. It wasn't like, oh, he just got beat up once. This was years and years and years of traumatic experiences. You know, me acting out, sending death threat letters to my teacher. You know, one time I had a dog, because my sister, she would find, you know, because she was always out on the streets, being you know, being someone who's in the drugs, fighting, running around with the wrong crowd, not doing anything better for themselves. You know, there would be fighting between my family members. My sisters always fight each other. And, you know, I was extremely disappointed when my mother had my youngest sister. I personally can say I hated her. And I forgive her now, but I actually don't even like any of my family at all, because they're not my family. They're not my family at all. And they tried to hide that from me. And it took me 30 years to get closer to the truth than ever before. And so that was frustrating, you know. Now there's, you know, I'm not the child anymore, you know. Nobody's still paying attention to me. And, you know, I may sound like, you know, oh, well, you know, you should grow up because, like, you know, nobody cares. And you're right. A lot of people don't care. That's fine. I don't want anyone to feel bad for me. I don't want anyone to care. You don't even have to listen to what I'm saying to you. You know, just consider this all to be fantasy or fiction. You know, however you want to take it, you can take it. Because it doesn't matter to me. Nobody's opinions, nobody that is walking on earth, besides the people who have done these things, there's only one person that knows the truth. And that's God. God knows everything. And everyone can believe what they want. I know what I've lived through. And I haven't even scratched the surface of all the things that really have gone on. But throughout each of these videos, I plan to make that a point where I am really getting down to some of the bad situations, besides what happened in my early childhood. Because this is over 30 years. 30 years this has been happening. And it happened, and it changed. You know, when you're younger, your experiences are completely different than when you become an adult. But growing up in that environment, everything was restricted. You know, I was codependent. I had to rely on people. I didn't have a voice. So when you have no voice, who can you go to? Strangers won't believe you. You know, the people closest to you won't believe you. And I turned away. I was rebellious, you know. My grandmother actually was probably the only person that cared about our entire family and kept us together. You know, even though I would go to school and I'd walk home and I lived pretty close, and then I would, you know, be out and about, and things are much different now. Everyone's basically isolated in Stockholm Syndrome.